Hello everybody and welcome to today's reconvened Audit Committee meeting. This is not a public meeting but a meeting the public can attend. I am Councillor Jane Cox, Vice Chair of the Audit Committee. Before we commence, I would like to outline the domestic arrangements for the meeting. We are not expecting a fire practice today. If the alarm sounds, please leave the chamber, then turn right and proceed down the stairway and through the emergency exit on the ground floor. The assembly point is in the public square in front of Cast, beyond the fountain. Anybody with mobility issues should wait in the refuge area near the lift and use the intercom to call for assistance. This meeting will be recorded and published on the Council's website. By entering the Council chamber, you are accepting that you will be recorded and your images will be retained and broadcast by the Council. If anyone intends to record today's meetings, please ensure this does not disturb the conduct of the meeting. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched to silent mode. Thank you. So, item number 1, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Dr Stuart Green, co-opted member, Councillor David Carroll and Councillor Jason Charity. I think that covers everybody. Yeah. Item 2, exclusion of the public and press. There are no items where the public and press are to be excluded on today's agenda. Item 3, the Counter Fraud Activity Report 26-27. As all members have read the report, can I ask Faye if she wishes to bring any specific items to the members' attention or has anything to add since the report was drafted?
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Just to say that this is a standard annual report setting out the fraud assessment for this authority, culminating in the counter-fraud plan, which is included within the internal audit plan. I'm aware training has been provided to members and happy to take questions.
Does any member have any questions?
Page 116, item 2.6, regarding housing tenancy fraud. Who actually refers these and how are they identified?
Sorry, Councillor Jackson, who actually refers them, as in from members of the public or?
Sorry, who actually identifies the fraud? Is the referral from St Ledger or is there a check, as the application is made by the fraud section?
Yes, Councillor, it's from both, and we also receive a number of matches through the National Fraud Initiative as well, so it's from a multiple number of sources.
Any further questions? No. Is there a proposal to agree the recommendation at paragraph 6 of the report? Thank you. Thank you. The recommendations are agreed. Item 4, the Anti-Fraud and Corruption Framework 26-29. As all members have read the report, can I ask Peter Jackson if he wishes to bring any specific issues to members' attention or has anything to add since the report was drafted?
Yeah, so just very briefly, Chair, the framework is subject to a 3-yearly overhaul. This edition is now version 7 of the document since its creation. It includes a reference to the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act 2023. That's the main addition to it. And also the associated failure to prevent fraud offence that it introduces. Updating also the sanctions policy to reflect the latest stance from the CPS in deciding whether prosecution is in the public interest. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Does anyone have any questions? Can I just ask Pete how this differs from the previous one, if there's any significant changes?
So, yes, Chair, the main difference is the reference to the Economic Crime and Transparency Act. that only came into, whilst it's 2023, I think it actually only came into force late on last year or early on last year, I think. And then, as I said, the sanctions policy has been updated to reflect the CPS advice that's recently passed.
So is that a positive change? Is that going to create more work?
I think when we've looked at the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act, we've assessed it as very low risk. Our existing anti-fraud arrangements are sound. And when we've assessed the risk of failure to prevent fraud offence, which is the sort of council or its employees committing fraud, it's very minimal, and we are covering off one or two areas where there is some potential exposure as part of the audit plan coverage during this year. So it has imposed a little bit of extra work in doing this initial assessment, but the further work that it creates is very minimal. And going forward, we just need to maintain an ongoing assessment and ensure that we maintain sound control arrangements over our fraud and corruption arrangements, Chair.
Thank you. I was just going to draw members' attention to the version history as well in Appendix A, because that sets out the changes, the date of the change and the main substance of the change. But as Pete said, the main change is that in relation to April 26 is the new sections in relation to ECCTA. But that shows the chronology going all the way back to when it was introduced, 1999.
Thank you. No one else has any questions? No. Is there a proposal to agree the recommendation at paragraph 7 of the report? Thank you. The recommendation is agreed. Item 5, the Internal Audit Charter and Strategy. As all members have read the report, can I ask Peter Jackson, Head of Internal Audit, if he wishes to bring any specific issues to the members' attention or has anything to add since the draft has been reported?
Thank you, Chair. So, we're split into two parts here, the Charter and the Strategy. Shall I just do an intro for the Charter and consider that first, or shall I do the Charter and the Strategy and just go with the flow?
Do them both.
Do both. Okay. Right. Okay. So, first item is the Internal Audit Charter. The Charter is in effect the terms of reference for the Internal Audit Service. It's got to be reviewed periodically and presented to the Audit Committee for approval. There's been several changes to the Charter, and this is to reflect the requirements of the new global internal audit standards in the UK public sector and the Code of Practice for Governance of Internal Audit in the UK local government. It also sets out the roles and responsibilities for producing, updating and approving the audit plan, including significant interim changes, which are set out in Section 7.3 of the document. The strategy, this is a document that sets out the overall strategic direction of the Internal Audit Service for 2026 to 2029. It supports the delivery of the Doncaster Delivering Together, the City Borough Strategy and the Council's corporate plan, and it's focusing on enhancing and protecting organisational values, which is within the sort of mission of internal audit, and improving the effectiveness of risk management, control and governance processes. It's got three key areas: developing agile and data-driven approaches to auditing, workforce planning and professional development, and developing the assurance framework. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Does anyone have any questions? I just have one that's similar to the previous one. So it says in paragraph 3, there's a reference to changes to the Charter, but it doesn't specify them. So what are the main changes?
It's a little bit of a rewrite, mostly around wording to make us be visibly compliant with the global internal audit standards. So our basic charter has always been the sort of around the rights of access to information and explanations from officers at all reasonable times. Those sort of things are still embedded within the document. It's more just been refined to pick up the specific wording of the standards. So there's nothing really major. It's more around the wording and the way that we've presented it.
Thank you. I just want to pick up on, as Pete outlined in his intro, particularly the significant changes. This has been something that we've discussed at previous audit committee meetings in terms of so the aim of the charter is to try and outline what changes will come to audit committee for agreement, and which kind of, as Pete's managing the service, will be just part of day-to-day managing the internal audit plan. And I think what the aim is behind the plan as well, which we're going to come on to, is about that kind of agile, that flexible. So that's kind of covered in the charter as well, about it needing to be flexible in terms of what we need to cover and how we need to cover it. So Pete has done quite a bit of work working with others in terms of how could we define significant changes to the audit plan, and that's kind of been built into here. We have looked at other councils to see other councils what they've kind of got in their charters, and it's not specifically defined in that many. So this is something that we're trying to bring in. We're obtaining guidance as well from SITFA and others in terms of what is reasonable in terms of that definition of significance, because I think that is quite a change really in terms of this.
Yeah, thank you, Faye. We do talk in the internal audit plan about how we're going to sort of work with yourselves in applying that operationally and with senior management to be able to apply these significant interim changes. As Faye says, it's still very early days for the new standards, and that is perhaps the most significant thing there, where it's talking about defining it, whereas the previous standards were quite silent on that issue.
Thank you. Does anyone have any further questions? No? So, is there a proposal to agree the recommendations at paragraph 6 of the report? Thank you. The recommendations are agreed. Right, so the internal audit plan. As all members have read the report, can I ask Peter Jackson, Head of Internal Audit, if he wishes to bring any specific issues to members' attention or has anything to add since the report was drafted?
Okay, Chair, so I'm going to sound a little bit repetitive here, but we've prepared our audit plan in compliance with the new global internal audit standards. I think it is really important to be sort of stating this, though, because we are due to have our external quality assessment carried out later on this year, and that is what they are assessing us against. So the plan is driven by the Council's organisational objectives and priorities and the risks that may prevent the Council from achieving these objectives. In line with the auditing standards, the proposed audit plan has been devised adopting a risk-based approach. Detailed consultation and desktop review processes identified a long list of audits, which is then reassessed to agree the priorities and inform the Q1 audit plan for 26-27. For quarters 2 to 4, a rolling work plan sets out a wider list of identified audit priorities, which are reassessed each quarter to determine the priorities at that time. This ensures that the plan remains flexible and responsive to Council's needs. As part of this quarterly review process, I'm wanting to engage with committees, I've just said, and management, and this is something that I hope we can develop over the current year to make this process work and ensure that committee are, involved and aware of what the work of the team is. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Does anyone have any questions on the plan? No. I have one, Peter, and it was about, and I'm trying to find it, and I can't find what page it's on because these are my notes from the previous meeting. In Annex 1, I've written that, it says it references council online inquiries, and it says this piece of work will assess issues being raised via the council online reporting system to consider whether there is any potentially fraudulent or other serious activity taking place. This piece of work was requested and adds value by ensuring that serious issues are being dealt with appropriately. Just give us some oversight on that, please.
Sorry, Chair. Okay, so we've got two pieces of work focused around the councillor online system. The first one is looking at how it operates. Is it fit for purpose? Is it efficient and effective? And we're looking at how that's being currently developed within the council. I think the development work is quite well advanced by now. It's been well underway for over a year. And the feedback is that it's perceived to be a lot better than the previous one. This piece of this piece of work that we're looking at here arose from a discussion that we held a few months ago now, when is there anything more of an underlying problem within the complaints that are being logged on the councillor online system. So on the face of it, there's a service complaint, but could there actually be something more of a concern underlying it? Might there perhaps be a tenancy fraud issue, for example? So we're basically having a look at how we can sort of view through the types of complaints and just assess whether there's anything that we might want to do a little bit more of a detailed look at through the sort of internal audit lens on it, rather than a customer service perspective.
I think it's just having a high-level look in terms of the types of complaints and just seeing if there's anything that internal audit feel it might be worth digging into. It might be a quick look and actually that's completed. It's just about making sure that we're looking at all sources of information really in terms of identifying things. I think it's more a kind of check really in terms of just checking if there's anything that we're missing. Yeah, that horizon scanning.
I think we could have a whole meeting on councils online, to be fair, if you'd like one. Is there anything else on here that you feel you should bring to the attention of the committee at this point?
Thank you. The only thing I wanted to mention was since we produced this report, there's been the council meeting and the motion in relation to the rescinding the borrowing, which includes actions in relation to the audit plan. We currently have a line in the audit plan which is client-side monitoring of DSA regarding the opening, to provide advice and assurance on the governance in place, shareholder decisions, client-side monitoring, and deliver any specific work requested identified via the monitoring arrangement. So I think that covers really in terms of doing the work that was included in the motion. I did just ask Pete just to double check if he felt there was any change that we needed in terms of the plan, but I'm just conscious that's in Q1 already, so it's already in the plan, so we'll be doing that work.
Yeah, I think can I just add the phrase client-side monitoring? Yeah. Can you explain what you mean by client-side as opposed to some other side?
If that's okay, Chair. So if we go back to the 5th of November Cabinet meeting, it set out the interdependency between SIMCA, Council and FDL, and there's the interrelationship is governed via a loan agreement between the Council and FDL. FDL will be under obligations on a regular basis to produce management information, performance information, and report that into the Council. I anticipate that company will produce monthly information like we do, and then we report that in quarterly. We talked about having a flow, so exactly how we've got at the moment, where we've got the finance and performance improvement report that comes through to Cabinet. It would then go to Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So we've got that arrangement. Client side would affect that governance that sits behind it, both Cabinet and the Overview and Scrutiny. We set that out as effectively the shareholder, therefore the client side arrangement. But they inevitably will be needing officers in order to assimilate that information, cross-check it, and also in terms of ensuring we've got separation duties. So we've got whilst it hasn't been formed we've had conversations with Simca in terms of how Simca and the council, from an officer point of view, form a client side in order to ensure that there's the effective information flow coming from FDL through to council and into those existing decision-making forums. As part of the amendment that you passed last Monday, there was also a reference in there about an airport governance board. So that was a new requirement that you, full council, have charged effectively us to consider how that will be established. So we'll need to give some thought about how that sits within that decision-making framework that I've just set out, because we want to make sure that you're getting as much insight and transparency of information, but we don't want to overburden the system so that it's absolute, because it's going to be a fast-moving arrangement. Months, in terms of our monthly monitoring, they happen quickly. So we need to make sure that it's as efficient as possible, so that it's as clear as possible between decision makers and a more a broader, I'm going to call it church of a broader church in terms of that airport governance arrangement. So I suppose what I've just set out is a bit of a landscape, probably cluttered one, if from listening to what I've just set out, that needs to be formalised and set up when we've got the loan, the FDL and all the appropriate arrangements starting.
I guess from that clutter, my question would be, one of the questions would be who would you look at being the airport governance? Because, and there's no detriment in what I'm going to say, but we have a small pool of officers, and the small pool of officers seem to be involved in FDL, the council, and clearly I wouldn't expect them to be involved in the governance. So our pool of people is quite small.
Absolutely get your point. And that's in part why we've invited Simca into that arrangement, in order that we've got a separate check and challenge, given that they're the funders. But in terms of our conflict of interest, that was a matter that was raised by external audits as part of the last year's accounts. So we've taken advice on that matter. The intention is to act on the advice that's been provided, and we'll formulate that, but there definitely will be separation of duties. So there's, just to illustrate, as a director, I will sit on FDL, Faye will sit on the other side in terms of the client from an officer point of view, but that would need, what I'm describing is the more important role is around decision makers and where the information flows. And that is quite clear, to me anyway, that FDL has got a role in terms of running the company. The council, as the shareholder, has the responsibility of keeping oversight through cabinet and of view and scrutiny. So, sorry, but we'll set all that out.
No, I guess it still comes back to the people that are reading the information, understanding what they're reading. Does that make sense? Because we're clearly not financial officers, and we need to be able to understand what we're reading to make sure that we're understanding it in the correct way, because you don't want anyone to assume they're reading something that's absolutely fine when actually it's just buried in lots of numbers and lots of words, and it's not absolutely fine.
So I hope by you've got your section 151 that'll be sat on client side. I'm hoping that Simca from their programme management will come into that, and the people we've been engaging with is the section 73 officer, Gareth Sutton, and it might be Laurie Thomas. She's the programme manager that sits on Simca's side. So you will have senior leaders that have got that ability to look at the information that's been provided and support you in that governance role.
Thank you. Just to say initially, I think it's kind of split client side, making it clear that it's not from a FDL perspective. This is from a CDC perspective, so from the client in terms of it's future-proofing it, because obviously Q1, that's unlikely to be in place, but it's just future-proofing it in terms of that wording. But it is very much looking from a CDC perspective, so really thinking in terms of if through those monitoring discussions there's any concerns raised, then it's in the plan, so I can have a conversation with Pete and said, can you have a look at this? I'm concerned about this. The other avenue that we've got as well is to obtain independent advice still. So we are working with advisors as well in terms of, and we need to kind of be able to provide that and to members as well in terms of that oversight. So we can bring that in, and yeah, I'm trying to get Simca to join in terms of those monthly monitoring discussions as well. So because the more people that are monitoring it, having a look at it, the better. And I'm sure
you don't sound overly confident
colleagues,
about Simca.
Joining in the month. I think it's the regularity of it.
I wouldn't say that they've got a responsibility. They're the funder, and it will be covered under the terms. Will be covered under the funding, the grant agreement, funding agreement. It's called. So they will have that requirement. It's just the extent we anticipate it working like we operate on that monthly cycle. So it's about their level of resource really. So, and because we've been, the position we've been in over the last few months, I think that's we've been concentrating on other matters as opposed to formalising the sort of governance arrangements thereafter. So, because the other aspect is Simca as part of the apart from their assurance, they've got two dedicated directors on the board, so they will be also receiving information via that route as well. So it's probably just going to see how it works, because they may feel that actually by appointing two directors into the company, then they've already got that angle boxed off. The argument I've put back to them is their directors have got that fiduciary responsibility to the company, so once they're in the tent, they'll be part of the company. That's why they still need to have that check and challenge in the way that we're talking about. So
I think the other thing we've left kind of open at the moment in terms of that client side and that monitoring, and as Debbie says, we've not really worked through it all yet, but it's that I might need somebody, to kind of support me really in terms of advising as well. So we might get some kind of independent advisor really in terms of that monitoring as well. But we need to see how it progresses and assess what we need.
Have Simca nominated two directors yet? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they've gone through under a recruitment process in the same way that we have. So their NEDs have, they appointed an agent to secure NEDs, and they've appointed them. We haven't mobilised because the company's not being set up. It's not got capitalisation, so there's but the two people in the wings that are waiting.
And are these people are they directors of Simca? Are they part of Simca?
Simca have appointed an agent, a recruitment agent to search. The search has appointed two people and there will be when we set the company's already set up. I'm going into quite a lot of detail later on one element, aren't we? The company's already set up, as you know, with directors, but when we've got more certainty around the capitalisation, we'll then put them on the company's house as directors.
Are these directors remunerated then?
With Simca.
It was reported that whoever Simca appoints, they would have aviation knowledge.
Yes.
That.
Yeah, so one's got aviation, they're specific in their requirements, one aviation and one commercial. Yeah, I haven't met them, and I haven't looked at their CVs, but that's what they show me. That was their requirements, and that's what the process they've gone through.
Frank?
No, I'm fine. I'm sorry, Chair. Can we go back to item 10, which was the annual report of the Head of Internal Audit, because Peter wasn't actually here, and that is where the adjournment was done.
No, we did item 10 last time. Sorry. We did item 10 at last meeting.
No, I'm sorry, I'd got it as the point of adjournment because I'd got several questions which were never asked.
Can we just confirm when we adjourned?
We did take an action away for Pete to review a specific item, so we were thinking about bringing it back to the next meeting.
Well, sorry, the specific item was item 3, where he referred to, however, he will further note the vulnerability of being able to maintain this opinion for the 2026-27 year, and that was challenged by the chair at the time. Yeah,
and we took away an action, or Pete took away an action to review that wording and bring some, and what we were thinking was we'd bring a further report to the next meeting, scheduled meeting, where we can then present that report and Pete's thoughts on really in terms of those queries from members. So that isn't time specific. So Pete, and I think in terms of the 25-26 opinion, that was fine. It was that vulnerability looking forward, wasn't it? So that's where we can bring something to the next meeting, and then so hold the question, have a look at the report that Pete presents, and then it may be that we can cover that next time.
So the full report is going to come back to audit.
Yeah, we'll bring Pete's annual audit opinion to the next one, including consideration of the points that were raised.
I was going to say, Councillor, actually, I think that's what we agreed at the last. Bear in mind, this is the second half of the first meeting. Third. So we're still in that first meeting that we've been doing for months. So yeah, it was agreed at the last meeting, which is still this meeting, that would come back to the next meeting, if that makes any sense. So is there a proposal to agree the recommendation at paragraph 10 of the report? Thank you. So, as all members have read the report, can I ask Thelina, Senior Manager of Public Sector Audit at Grant Thornton, if he wishes to bring any specific issues to members' attention or has anything to add since the report was drafted?
Chair, I'll take it if that's
sorry,
okay.
Georgia.
No, that's okay. No problem. So I'll just quickly pull out a few highlights. So this is our audit plan, which sets out the work we're going to do under the Code of Audit Practice for the Council for the year ending 31st of March 2026. So page 5 of our report, which is page 251 of the original agenda papers, sets out kind of just the summary of the plan, if you like. So it sets out the significant risks we've identified, of which there's 3. They're nothing unusual for a council, a local government organisation. It's nothing specific to Doncaster. You'll see these in most audit plans for a council. We set out our materiality, which we've determined. We've increased materiality this year because there has been a change in the guidance allowing us to do that. But we have assessed whether that, the risk associated with the council's financial statements allows us to do that, and I'm satisfied that it does. So we've raised materiality this year. And of course, there is the group audit because you have St Ledger Homes, so we'll also look at the consolidated financial statements. On the following page also then sets out our value for money work. So you'll recall we brought our auditor's annual report to the November meeting, which related to 2025, and with some significant weaknesses we'd identified in that report. So we are rolling them forward as risks for this year, as you would expect, and we'll be following those up. Looking at kind of the actions the council's put in place to address our recommendations, and we'll report back to you when that work is complete, and that is already underway, that work. And then there's just a bit of logistics, which it just includes kind of the fee, and we have done some interim work this year, so we've done some early testing to help us kind of get ahead of the game, if you like, for when we do the financial statements work, which will be starting in July. And just to confirm, we've complied with all ethical standards, so we remain independent, which we are required to reconfirm to you on an annual basis. The following pages kind of set out all of that in a bit more detail. So you've got more detail on each of the significant risks and how we propose to address those risks, the work that we will do. You'll see a couple of extra things in there around revenue and expenditure. They are risks that we have to consider under the auditing standards, but we are able to rebut those risks. So we've set out there that we have rebutted those risks around revenue and expenditure. However, we will still be doing our usual kind of audit testing, audit sampling on the transactions. So we will still be doing quite a lot of work on them. We just don't consider them what we term a significant risk. So really the rest of the report just puts the flesh on the bones of those things that I've just gone through. We'll follow up all our prior year recommendations and report back to you on those. I'm really just happy to take any questions on the detail if members have any.
Only just when do you expect to finish the report for the financial year? When are we expecting to receive that?
So the work will commence in July, and we anticipate bringing our reports to the November committee. So that will be the audit findings report, which is the financial statements work, and the auditor's annual report, which is the value for money work. So we anticipate reporting to November committee and then hopefully signing my opinion shortly after that.
Debbie? Can I just ask Georgia, with all the clutter, as Debbie referred to it as, will Grant Thornton have oversight of the new governance arrangements and have an opinion on whether they are suitable for the amount of money that we're spending?
So initially, our VFM work covers the period to 31st March 2026. So that's what we'll concentrate on. But we do have to take a forward look as well. And especially because some of our key recommendations are around conflict of interest, are around the governance for the airport. So we will pick up the actions directly related to them. But I've also made a few notes from today to refer back to the VFM team to kind of speak to officers to get that picture of, because as you say, I think it sounds like it's quite early stages in those specific specific kind of arrangements. And the key for me would be that those arrangements are then finalised, set out. Members understand kind of what's in place for their, especially Overview and Scrutiny Committee, knows kind of what the flow of information is, what they will see, what support they've got. So we'll definitely kind of pick that up in terms of the point it is now and the proposals, and see how that kind of fits in with the findings that we've had previously and how we think the government's arrangements look to be developing.
So would that be included in the November report?
Yes, so as much, we'll obviously have to have a cut-off at some point so we can report to you, but anything that we can kind of look at that is kind of available for us in the point up to then, so, you know, July, August, September, when we're still doing the work potentially, we'll be kind of talking about the development of those arrangements, what they're looking like. Obviously, until they are in place, we can't make an actual judgment on them, but what we can do is say, what's the proposals? Does that sound in line with what we'd expect? And we'll report back to you on that.
So would be, as FDL is 100% owned by Doncaster Council, would Grant Thornton have the authority to audit that company in the way? No. Because it does it have the, 'cause it has the authority over St Ledger, or am I getting that wrong?
So St Ledger obviously is an established company. There's material transactions going through it, and so under the accounting standards, if it's kind of would have your subsidiary would have a material impact on your accounts if consolidated, then you have to consolidate it. FDL is not at that point yet, is my understanding. So it's under the Companies Act anyway, that one. So it's kind of slightly different. And also it's not at the point where there's kind of transactions going through it to be kind of consolidated in financial statements, is my understanding.
But moving, I think my question is, moving forward, would Grant Thornton or the external auditors have the ability or the right to go and audit that?
So two different things, and I think you're asking a question about, because there's potential conflict here as well. So the company will have its own auditors, as has St Ledger. What George is referencing is the consolidation then, and then so there's like a bit of a double whammy. Company needs to do its own accounts. Company will need to have its own auditors separate, and then it will come into the whole. I was going to say whole government accounts, but the group accounts.
So just for my understanding, DCLT St Ledger have independent auditors as well. But but do you have an oversight of that, obviously, to connect it back to the council and see if it all works in the correct manner, I'm guessing?
Yeah, apologies if I confused things. So yeah, St Ledger have their own auditors. They produce their accounts and they're audited, and then those accounts are consolidated into the council's group accounts. And as part of our audit, we look at the consolidation transactions, how they've been consolidated. And we also write to St Ledger's auditor to get assurance from the work that they've done. And if we wanted to, potentially we can inspect that work or get more detail from them. And it will work the same way once FDL is properly up and running and has material transactions going through it.
Any further questions? No? Okay, is there a proposal to note the report? Thank you. The report is noted. That now concludes the items of business on today's agenda. Thank you to everyone for their attendance. Whilst he has been able to attend the meeting, I note that it is the final meeting of our co-opted independent member, Dr. Stuart Green, whose 4-year appointment ends in May. Can I express on behalf of the committee our thanks for his contribution over these 4 years? I now declare the meeting closed.